Welcome back to Disney Marvels for week of May 24th, 2020. This is episode 85. Disney Marvels, the show about Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Fox, the parks, and much, much more. If it has to do with Disney, it's fair game. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. Want to take a moment? This is Memorial Day week, let's say, in the United States. And I want to thank all the soldiers, all the men and women who have served in the armed forces and served our country in various ways. Thank you for your service, and we remember those who will not come back or are not with us anymore, and we thank them for their sacrifice in keeping our freedoms free. And also, on a slightly different topic, happy anniversary to Star Wars. This is the anniversary of Star Wars, the Star Wars week, as it were. That's when the film actually came out. You got May the 4th, which is fantastic, but this is the actual anniversary of a galaxy far, far away. We'll be back after these brief messages. And now, on with the show.
Nah. There goes Mr. Outrage. There goes Mr. Sneer.
He has no time for friends or fun.
His anchor makes that clear.
Don't ask him for a favor, cause his nastiness increases.
No crust of bread for those in need.
No cheese, it's for us Mises.
Star Wars came out this time, 30, 40 plus years ago. And I thought, well, I should get someone who was involved in Star Wars on the show to talk about that wonderful franchise. But then the Muppets dropped a bombshell and said the Muppets now will be coming out. I said, oh, maybe I should get someone who's involved with the Muppets on the show. And I couldn't decide. Or just someone in general who's done some Disney films. And I had a dilemma. So I figured I found someone, or actually someone was suggested to me, that not only has done Disney stuff, but has worked extensively with the Muppets, and may have appeared in 1, 2, maybe even 4 Star Wars movies. This man also knows where the wax lips are kept in which trousers. Mike Quinn, how are you doing?
Well, hello. I'm sorry you're stuck with me instead of somebody that, might have been actually worked on even more stuff. But anyway, you've got me instead. So there we are. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, please. My pleasure. My pleasure. And just because of the enormity of this guest that I have on, I brought Matt Leonard in to also.
Hey!
Because if there's people that someone knows more about how to manipulate felt on your hand, it is Matt Leonard.
And then he works puppets sometimes as well.
50 ways to use your lever.
Can I just say, I was looking over Mike's IMDb page this morning just to kind of remind myself everything, and it really is just a treasure trove of a career. Just everything that you've worked on, all these projects, just one classic beloved piece of work after another. Some very well known, The Great Muppet Caper and Return of the Jedi, and then some that are a little less known, something like Tale of the Bunny Picnic, I know you were involved in, and Secret Life of Toys, which is very charming pieces that probably don't get as much attention or aren't known as much. So it's a real thrill to be able to sit here with you and talk for a bit about some of these things.
That's true. I mean, IMDb certainly is always wrong, and I'm always trying to update and correct things because people in their wisdom try and be helpful and put things up that are wrong. And so it's got a lot of stuff that's missing as well. Especially the smaller, more obscure stuff. I mean, and there's probably more of that than anything else. All the commercials and various random appearances here and there and that kind of thing. But they're lesser known, so they're not up there. But yeah, there's just been a lot of big, small projects, some that get forgotten, some that are gone in the blink of an eye and never seen again as well. So, that's what I guess we do as performers, sort of, and the same would go for any other actor and musician and writers, clowns. Hey, we've got to bring the clowns in. So
send in the clowns.
We'll bring those in. But with that said, every project is just as valid as the next. When you're working on it, you still give your absolute best and work super hard, no matter what the project is. It's just that some stuff sticks to the wall and some of it slides down and into the gutter and is never seen again. And in some cases, that's probably where it belongs. But that's the way of it. So. But I'm just lucky enough that there's been some, large projects that I kind of look back favorably now over, with nostalgia and over time. They, when back in the 80s when we made those films and the large projects like that, they were big at the time, and then they sort of fall out of favor, and all the new stuff comes along, and it just becomes sort of old news. But then after, it seems like there's almost like a rough sort of 30-year sort of cycle, and everything kind of comes back again, and it's huge again, and it has this nostalgia and retro feel, and people actually can sort of revisit or see the stuff for the first time or share it with their kids, from when they were that age, when they first saw it. So it's nice to see stuff kind of coming back again and being re-released in new formats for everyone to see, and I can appreciate them more so now than I think even then. With distance, with space, giving it time and seeing it with a fresh perspective. It's like, oh my goodness, you know what? This is actually really good. I didn't realize it was as good. So it's really interesting for me to see it with fresh eyes,
Oh, indeed. I mean, coming from someone that still shows their kids the 1978 Sesame Street Christmas special every year.
I know. Wasn't that great? That was so good.
It was beautiful.
Classic.
And Carol did such a great job in that one. And I mean, I had it on VHS until my mother finally said, all right, here's the DVD copy of it.
Nice.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You need to retire that VHS.
Yeah, those are classics. That, and of course, I've always loved the Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas, which was from a similar the year before, but a similar time. And there was a lot of great stuff happening back then.
Christmas Toys, another favorite of mine. I've been having trouble finding that one, but
yes, I think I've seen it on a dual disc with something else. But it's great. It's really good. It was just such a creative time for Jim, though, for sure, and all the people around him in the mid to late 70s. And I was lucky enough just to sort of stick my head in at the very end of the golden era of Muppets and Jim and what he was doing, sort of right at the end of Muppet Show and into the films. And he'd already made the Muppet movie, but he was really sort of opening up a lot with Fraggles and Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and Storyteller and all the new worlds and things he wanted to do and create. And he had so many more projects and ideas that he wanted to do that never got realized. He was so far ahead of his time and so many projects ahead as well, in his mind. So.
Yeah, there are several interviews where he's described as a walking idea machine. That there was just always something. And it took, even after he passed, there was stuff that they were doing with the characters and stuff they were doing that was he had planted the seeds of, and they carried it on and were able to do with it. And if you ever really want a real sense of what a walking, how many ideas he had, go on YouTube and find the pitch film for the Jim Henson Hour. Whereas he originally conceived it, it was going to be like a whole different show each week. And one week they were going to do like a storyteller thing, and the next week they were going to do a Muppet Show thing, and the next week they were going to do like something like Tale of the Bunny Picnic or Emmett Otter.
Yeah.
And you just look at it and go, how do you fund a project like that? There was just so much that he wanted to do.
it's certainly something hard to pitch, but
Yeah.
he did though. He would get ideas and say, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we did this, and can we do that, and what about that? And he didn't. I think he was just so open to just that blank sheet of paper, and not at that point in time thinking about, okay, what's the budget? Can we do this? Is there an audience for it? He would just sort of start, I think, from a point of view of what's entertaining and what's fun and what would I like to see, and what made him giggle as well quite often. What world did he want to immerse himself in and create? And that's sort of how he thought. I think he was more sort of a broad, big picture kind of guy, and also Jim was definitely about experimenting with new characters as well. Let's not forget that, and that's something that he would always try with his. Even on Muppet Show, he'd introduce new characters, and some would work and some wouldn't. Some would need developing, but they developed nonetheless. Others would fall by the wayside. And had he lived, I certainly think we would have seen a lot more new Muppet characters around, just because that was sort of, he was always looking forward, always looking ahead, and expanding and seeing what hadn't been done yet. So I think that is one of the things that is missed from Jim not being around, is just not just the new worlds, but also the new characters within those worlds, the new relationships and that kind of thing, and ideas that he put forward. But he was also very good at bouncing off of the people around him. He had a very good creative team around.
Yeah.
And a core group, people like Jerry Jewell and all the performers and some of the builders, and and they just kind of all gelled together, which was a beautiful thing to see. Every now and then I've witnessed where I've been sort of the assistant puppeteer to both Jim and Frank. I remember one time they were shooting. It was early 80s. I think it was after Dark Crystal, so it might have been 83, 2, 3, something like that. We were shooting some wraparounds, some links and inserts for Muppet Home Videos, which was basically a couple of Muppets linking certain old Muppet Show clips. So it was kind of a clip video. So we had Ralph's Rhapsodies and Scooter's Tales or whatever, and then there was another one where Kermit and Fozzie were in the attic going through old Muppet Show props, and hey, you remember this when this happened? And then they would segue into a clip, So I would be brought in to assist them, basically. It was Jim and Frank, sometimes Richard Hunt, and myself, and a couple of one or two people from Muppet Workshop, and that was it. And Jerry Jewell, who was literally on the floor writing this stuff on the spot, basically, with them, like 5 minutes. Oh, what can we do here? And then they'd sort of come up with an idea and write it. And then they'd perform it, And I just, to be in that core environment when they were all still at their peak, absolutely. The puppets were beautiful. The performers were in tip-top form. This was the cutting edge of Muppets right there, the inner core, really. And every now and then they would get the giggles, they'd be doing something silly with. Like, I remember so well, we were doing the attic wraparounds, and Frank had Fozzie on, Jim had Kermit, Jerry Jewell was there, and they'd come up with something that just tickled them to no end, and they just all started giggling. They all had tears running down their faces, and it was just such a lovely thing to see, this pure joy of enjoying the moment of what they do, playing, just playing, and it had nothing to do with we have to be out by 6 o'clock because that's what the studio is paid for, or we must be serious and press on. It's just, it was all part of the process of what made Muppets really, I think. And you don't really see that elsewhere necessarily. People often don't understand that is actually part of the process and the character development and the fun, and ideas can come out of that stuff too, when people are playing and bantering back and forth. Oh, that's a good idea, let's use that, that's a funny line, things like that. So to witness that is something very, very special.
Oh, indeed. And I always say that if the performers are having fun and enjoying themselves, it really does come across the screen.
It
And
carries.
Yeah.
the
It carries.
audience, yeah, the audience recognizes that, and it just pulls them in that much more.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're watching a movie or something, and those performers are either they don't want to be with each other, they don't, they're just there for the paycheck, whatever the reason is.
There are clips. There are very clear Muppet Show clips that you can watch, and you can just see how much fun. And Sesame Street too. You can just see the performers just
Yeah.
loving it and enjoying it, and it really really comes through.
Yeah.
And I also want to thank you very much for mentioning Jerry Jewell, because I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for how wonderful the Muppets are. I'm always glad when I hear people mention him and give him the credit he really deserves.
Absolutely. He was a core part of the team, him and Frank and Jim and a few of Don Celine and a few of the others were all absolutely key to making that company what it was, for sure. Yeah, Jerry was a lovely man.
I always feel like there's a Venn. If you did a Venn diagram of really heartwarming, humane, showing all the really humanitarian side of the Muppets and the really heartwarming stuff they did, and all the stuff that Jerry Jewell wrote, it's a pretty huge overlap. He really brought a humanity to it it was really unique, I think, to him. I think it was a sensibility that Jim had and shared, and Jerry Jewell was able to carry that forward. And it gives you something like Fraggle Rock,
Well, that's right. Yeah, he was head writer on that. As well as a key in Muppet Show stuff. And what was great about Jerry that I witnessed anyway was, he loved the written word anyway. He loved to read. He loved to write, and he loved silliness. So he was the king of classic Muppet puns. He would be able to just rattle that stuff off, no problem. But then also he was able to go deeper and do things like Muppet Christmas Carol and honor the Charles Dickens original as much as he possibly could. And it was a beautifully written film. I mean, it was an amazing screenplay that Jerry had come up with. So Jerry was actually super talented, and he was a one-off for sure.
Yeah.
We Matt and I actually did a review show not that long ago of the Muppet Christmas Carol, both stating how wonderful the script, the production level, the script, everything of that. It's one of the more truer film adaptations of it, where they bring in actual quotes from the novelization.
That's right. And one of the few times where the Ghost of Christmas Past is actually a girl, so they kept all that stuff. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, back on episode 67. That was we actually impromptu did it in length and timing to the movie. Matt had the movie running in the background as we're recording it.
We might have talked about the movie longer than the movie lasted.
Yes.
I won't admit to that, but it might have happened.
But but again, how much heart, how much depth you were able to get from the Muppet characters, having Gonzo as Charles Dickens and Rizzo there by his side, kind of just doing kind of like as the interpreter for the younger audience, or just kind of keep the younger audience entertained with the levity.
The comic relief, the comic sidekick,
and
so good.
Some of the songs out of that are just beautiful.
Yeah, that was actually Paul Williams', I think, first big thing after his break, from when he was, I guess, sorting out his own stuff. So that was kind of a big deal for him. Of course, he'd done the Muppet movie, Emmett Otter, and a Muppet Show, and all these other things of his own projects. But So, but he kind of had some things that he had to take care of, and this I think was the first. I want to say it was like 94, maybe 3 or 4 when we went in and did the song records. Yeah, I'm singing on the album there as well. I have a few one-liners as well as chorus stuff in there. So it was nice to see Paul again in that environment, and you know, a lot of the lyrics in the songs are I think quite personal to Paul Williams as well. So
yeah, Bless Us All.
Yeah.
The song that Tiny Tim does. Yeah, beautiful song.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff there that was, I think, where his head was at the time, I believe. And he kind of even sort of commented on that when we were recording it. So, yeah. I've got the demos somewhere on cassette, his original demos.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I guess before we get too much further into this, let's cover on how did you get into it? Because I love the story of how you got involved with knowing these people and started with the Muppet Group.
Oh gosh, yeah. Let's see. How did I get? I'm hearing a whooshing sound at the back. What is that?
Sorry, that's I'm in my basement, so that's my water boiler. I apologize.
That's all right. Okay. Let's see. So how did I get it? Yeah, I mean, basically, I was a Muppet fan. I always had puppets as a kid, and I enjoyed puppet shows. Grew up watching old 50s puppet films on TV and glove puppets, marionettes, old black and white stuff. Punch and Judy shows, live Punch and Judy shows at the beach. That was a very British thing, of course. Mm-hmm. So I was always into puppets and did a few little puppet shows myself. I had a little glove puppet show I did when I was about 8 or 9, something like that. And then I was kind of into animation, cartoons, though, also quite heavily at the time. So I was obsessing about Disney and drawing lots of cartoons and that kind of thing. So had Muppets not come along, I probably would have gone down that path of illustration, animation, cartoons, and that kind of thing. But when Muppet Show hit in 1976, it hit big in the UK right off the bat. And so I was, 12, something like that, 13. So I became obsessed right away and wanted to know how these things were built, how they were moving. And there wasn't much information back in the late 70s at all. There was no internet, of course. And just a few photos came out of how they worked them and that kind of thing. So I would spend my pocket money and buy materials and try to figure out how to make these puppets, and even took sewing in school so I could actually make puppets on school time. Excuse me. And which was quite good. So for the last 2 years of school, I was able to make puppets at school as well as at home, which was rather clever. But anyway, and then I first met the main Muppet 5 performers in, I think it was 1977. They hadn't quite started the second season of Muppet Show yet, but they were appearing at a London radio station for an hour guesting, So it was on the Kenny Everett show. I don't know if Americans know who Kenny Everett is, but some of you may. He was seen in what was the Freddie Mercury film that came out? What was that called? The one.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah,
Bohemian Rhapsody.
There's a scene in that film where Freddie Mercury goes to Capitol Radio and Kenny Everett says, "Look, I'm going to play your song. No one else will. I'll put it on the air. I'll help you with it." And it was an actor playing him because the guy had long passed, but anyway, that was the guy. So he had Muppets on his Saturday radio show, and I intercepted them in the lobby and got their autographs. So that was the first time I met Jim and Frank. Then about a year or two later, they released the Muppet movie, and so I obtained tickets from Lou Grade's office, again with my pocket money, for the Royal World premiere at the Leicester Square Theatre in London, and went to the premiere of the Muppet movie. So met a few more of them then again. And then in the last year of school, during 80, they were taping the last season of the Muppet Show. And I was able to bribe my way into the studio on a regular basis and watch them tape Muppet shows. I'd usually go on guest star days about every other week or so. So I'd see people like Diana Ross and Marty Feldman and Gene Kelly and Linda Ronstadt, and the list goes on. Linda Carter, she was the first one I went and saw, and so they got to know me at the Muppet Show, both the performers and Jim as well as the Muppet Builders. So when they finished the Muppet Show in the summer of 1980, it was also the time that I'd finished school, and I basically asked Jim for a job, and I think he what I'd heard years later was I'd been hanging around so much anyway that he might as well just give me a job, So I started on the Great Muppet Caper across the street at Elstree Studios, across from where they did the Muppet Show, and it was like August, I think, of 1980, so it will almost be 40 years ago now. And they just kind of took me on as a sort of an assistant background puppeteer, and I guess they just never stopped using me. So still working Muppets to this day, 40 years on. It's quite who can see that far ahead? I mean, nobody can. You can't even see 5 years ahead, but 40 is just insane. So
I don't even know what I'm having for dinner.
Yes, yeah. I think it's lasagna, but yeah, that's okay.
Do you remember like the first thing you did for Muppets, the first scene or the first character you got to perform?
Absolutely, it was the Happiness Hotel bus on the Great Muppet Caper outside the front of Elstree Studios. The admin block was doubling as the exterior for the Dubonnet Club, where Kermit and Piggy were doing their supper club scene. And so the Happiness Hotel bus pulls up outside and stops. And I was working the Swedish Chef leaning out of one of the windows. That was my very first night. And then I think the second night we were driving around. You remember Beauregard's little yellow taxi, his little cab?
Yeah.
It was either the second night or the Friday night, I forget. But they were doing wide shots of the vehicles driving around London. And there's a shot where Beauregard drives the taxi past Harrods, the big famous store in Knightsbridge in London. And so that was because I had two versions of the car. There was the puppeteer sort of close-up shell of the car, and then there was the stunt version of the car. So there was a stuntman wearing a Beauregard mask driving this taxi round the block in London just after rush hour. And in the back, I had Kermit and Gonzo, one on each hand. And was working Kermit and Gonzo for the wide shots. So when you see that in the wide shots going around London at night, that was me in the back working those two characters. And of course, can you imagine? The rest of the traffic was real traffic. So imagine driving past those guys and saying, "Oh, there's Kermit and Gonzo in the back of that little taxi there, and it's being driven by Beauregard." So that was one of the it's either the Tuesday or the Friday now. And then the other 3 nights of the week, that was first week, were night shoots where we would at Nebworth House, which was the exterior of the Mallory Gallery, where they're trying to break in and climb the drain pipes and all that kind of stuff. So that was my first week on Muppets.
So were you part of the group that had to climb the drain pipes? And could you talk about that? Because it's only in the last year or two I've learned about how that was made, and that's quite a story.
Yeah, so we went back and later on and did the close-ups, and you can see the real bad match in the film when you watch it. What was actually the exterior shot at Nebworth House, and then the close-ups of the Muppets actually climbing the drain pipe, and they tried to sort of match the shots together, but of course it didn't really match. But who cares? But so I was helping Richard Hunt with Beaker. So I think Richard was doing the head, and I was doing Beaker's hands and feet, And we were in these sort of horizontal death traps, this platform laying down there, all on one stack after the other, and it was on this I guess a hydraulic system, and we'd literally go up this drain pipe in the studio and back down and up and down, and it was kind of scary but fun at the same time. So I was helping Beaker in that stuff.
I think Dave Goelz has said it's like the most terrified he's ever been doing Muppets. That he was pretty convinced that Jim was going to get everybody killed doing that one effect.
I can believe that. Although there have been many other more dangerous things. So, to me, I didn't really think of it as being dangerous. I just thought it was kind of cool and fun. And we didn't die. So, yeah, amazing stuff. Really crazy rigs. All the things they did in that film, insane.
And that was coming from David, who Gonzo always ends up in some interesting situations in general.
Yeah.
So, I was just picturing in my head, the regular passerby who does not realize that they're on a movie set, seeing this taxi with Beauregard driving it, a full-size Beauregard, and then you had Kermit and Gonzo in the back, and the little girl turned to its mother. Mommy, was that a bear in the back of the car? No, dear. Bears wear hats. That's a frog.
Yeah, that's a frog. Oh, okay. So, yeah, it's wild. Good times, though. So, I mean, I was lucky in that I got to, work alongside and next to both Jim and Frank and all those guys. And, that was where you learned that stuff back then. There weren't any schools. There was nowhere to go to learn Muppetry and film and TV puppetry because it was still kind of a new thing, really. So I was lucky that I learned all the groundwork of what I'm still using to this day in that first couple of years, really, on the first, let's say, 3 movies, really. So,
was there a particular performer or somebody established Muppeteer that maybe took you under their wing and kind of guided you along and showed you some tricks?
To a point, Jim did that. He would always sort of like to choose me to assist him with Kermit or Ralph, or he'd sort of bring me along to events and things like that. So he was definitely trying to nurture me, at that young age. And it was usually Jim who decided who worked what. So Jim gave me my first speaking role and let me work one of the Skeksis and that kind of thing in Dark Crystal. But also Richard Hunt was very good with new people. He would sort of try and tell people what tricks to use or how to get high enough or how to get your head out or what kind of how to make stuff look good, techniques and that kind of thing. He was even good enough to make sure I was being paid enough on the next movie. It's like, how much are they paying you? Oh, that's ridiculous. That's not enough. And he'd go storming up to the office, and the next paycheck would be doubled, So that was Richard.
Fantastic.
Richard was always very good with the new kids and stuff, and just helping people basically. I'd say that's what happened.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you mention him too, because he's another one that I don't think gets enough focus or doesn't get the spotlight on him nearly enough. And what a talent he was.
It's great. He really was. He was so relatively young too, really. Yet
Yeah.
He was quite a force of nature. I mean, he was very loud, very vocal, very boisterous, very extrovert, and could be intimidating if you were intimidated by that kind of thing. But he was, an important part of that dynamic that made up that magical team. Each performer was so polarized from the next, just as all the good characters were as well. Lines, like with a good character, dialogue can't really be interchangeable so much, because it's like, well, this character wouldn't say it this way, or he might not even say this at all. So that's when you have good characters and good dialogue. And certainly I see all the original Muppet performers as being very, very distinctive and individual. And, there's no way in hell that anybody would ever have met in the real world, and maybe even thought of each other as wanting to get along together, had it not been for Jim and the Muppets. But here he is, just like in the Muppet movie, where Kermit gathers all these crazies along the way and takes them to Hollywood. Jim is a bit like that, I think, with all his team, with his performers and his builders and writers and camera people and all that kind of thing, and designers, illustrators. So there's that scene in the Muppet movie where Kermit is talking to himself in the desert.
Yeah.
He has that moment. It's like, oh gosh, what have I done? I brought all these people along with me, and now I'm responsible for them. And when I see that, I just see Jim in his real life, basically. It's like, gosh, no, I think Jim did feel quite a responsibility and a burden to keep people employed, and to, he sort of created this monster that he now had to keep feeding. I think there was a bit of a burden on him to a certain extent. So it's quite telling to me.
And he kind of mirrors that speech a little bit. He the other side of that coin is in the Muppets Take Manhattan, where he kind of turns on the characters and he flips out on them. He says, why can't you guys take care of yourselves? So
there's a maturing in a way in that. And when Jim passed, that was pretty much what we all realized. It's like, oh, we are going to have to take care of ourselves now. And how do we do this? And can we do this? It's a bit of foreshadowing there.
I personally, I'm a huge fan of Jim. I'm a huge fan of Walt Disney himself. And just see a lot of parallels between the two of them, and how, again, handpicking who works with them.
Yeah, definitely. Jim was very hands-on, pun intended.
And just these two idea people that just come up with these crazy ideas. And it was, well, I don't care how we do it. This is the point I want to get to, and we just need to figure it out, because no one else has ever done anything like that before.
Yeah, just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And if anything, that is a good reason to do it. So,
and just try to keep pushing the medium that they worked in.
Or the extra large.
Yeah. I mean, to think back that you work with just such incredible people, and as Matt keeps bringing up, I think most regular people, they know Jim, of course, they know Jim Henson, they know Frank Oz, and then there's this other ragtag group that worked with them that they just unfortunately don't know who these other amazing performers were. That unfortunately we've lost a lot of them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, utility troupe performers in a way. I mean, that's sort of how I see myself with Muppets. Is I'm sort of a utility guy, and there's a lot of us. Yeah. But what makes me unique in a way is that I'm sort of one of the few that's been around the longest.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I know, I think I'm the only puppeteer to have assisted all three Kermit puppeteers as well, I think. So, but I can jump into a character and double, for the principal characters when they're both in the same shot together and things like that, which is a really hard thing to do, because you sort of have to mimic their timings and their hand positions and all that sort of thing. So it's not something very many people can do, but as well as, fill in with one-liners and pigs, chickens, rats, penguins, and other characters as well. So a few whatevers. So yeah, but there are, there's a few of us in the UK. There are a few in the northeast of the States, and also some more in California, and some in Toronto and Ontario and Canada. So he sort of created all these little groups of people that they could sort of call upon whichever country they happen to be shooting in, basically.
Yeah. Not that I ever want to leave the Muppets, but I do want to move on to another little franchise that you got yourself involved in.
Blue Harvest, Horror Beyond Imagination.
Oh, I was going to bring up the...
Horror, the horrors.
Blue Harvest, Horror Beyond Imagination. I thought that's what we were going to talk about next.
It wasn't about a boy and his dog.
No, it's not about a boy and his dog.
That was a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
No. I wanted to take us to leave Earth and go to the galaxy far, far away. And you work with Lucas.
Yeah.
How did you end up, going from, working with the puppets and with Jim to running into George and getting involved in that whole mess, as it were?
Yeah, that was very easy in a way, and very natural and logical, in fact. Well, first of all, Jim and George, had a relationship with each other. They knew each other. They'd worked together. Jim and his guys had helped Frank and Stuart and Wendy and all that create Yoda and Empire Strikes Back. Also, of course, they had Star Wars guys on the Muppet Show. So Jim and George already knew each other. And we had just finished the Dark Crystal at Elstree in 81. And the very next picture to come in at the very beginning of 82 into the same studio was Return of the Jedi. So basically, animatronics were a new thing. Dark Crystal pretty much sort of raised the bar and almost invented that whole genre in a way. And so we were already trained up to work animatronics and creatures. And they knew they were going to have a lot of them in Return of the Jedi. So they basically just commandeered a whole bunch of us creature performers onto the next movie. And I never ever auditioned for anything. I remember I had a 15 minute chat with Robert Watts in his office, but that was kind of it. And then I was suddenly 1st of January, 2nd of January or whatever, I was on Return of the Jedi as a puppeteer. And I didn't really know what I'd be doing at that time. I don't think they did either. But they paired me up with Tim Rose again. Tim and I had worked together, of course, on Muppet Caper and Dark Crystal. Tim was also a Skeksis. So I was assisting Tim with Salacious Crumb and Admiral Akbar. And then I got to work a few other things. So the first thing we did was Jabba's Palace. And then later on, somehow I got to do Baby Ewoks. And of course, Frank pulled me in to assist with Yoda, which was great because I was a huge Yoda fan from Empire.
Yeah.
But I guess because I was small, my hand was small, and the set was tiny, and Frank knew my work from assisting him with Fozzie Bear. It was essentially the same kind of a job, working the right hand, basically the live right hand. So it was just the same as what I'd helped him with Fozzie do. So he asked me to work with Yoda. So I got to do that as well. And then, of course, accidentally later on, Nine Num came about, which was pure by chance. But I never auditioned for anything, which is crazy.
That's insane. But you just never know where these opportunities are going to come from or how they're going to end up.
You don't. That's true.
So next time I'm watching Jedi, I'll make sure to watch the right hand a little more closely of Yoda and see what it's up to.
Oh, he's
see if it's holding any rubber chickens.
And pulling the sheets over him. And yeah, it was good. Yeah, we rehearsed that for several days. And Frank plotted and planned it all out very meticulously, like Yoda was an actual actor, rather than a puppet. So we knew exactly what we were doing when we came to set, basically. So we could cover it all again and again from all the different angles. Yeah, it was good.
That's fantastic. So Nine Num, a very interesting character that seems to have got a lot of fan popularity.
Yeah.
What is it with a character like that? Well, I mean, particularly in Star Wars, it happens a lot. Muppets, you see it too a little, and I think in a lot of franchises where you just have these background characters, these tertiary characters, who, for whatever reason, the audience connects with them in this fervent way.
Yeah, I think it's a series of steps. I mean, with him, I think it was somewhat accidental. It wasn't really planned, I think the first step was literally just the design. I mean, he was very appealing to look at, very unique and fun and different. Very simple in many ways too, and not so creaturey. In some ways, he's a bit more human than a lot of the actual Star Wars creatures to me. But he has that visual appeal right off the bat because he's got that sort of big, wide, innocent eye look, So he kind of looks cool right off the bat, And he was sculpted by Dave Carson at ILM, and initially he was just a background pull-on mask that had no movement, no articulation, and an extra wore him initially for the scenes where you see him with legs, and that was what they shot first. But then, I would say we were March or April, something like that. I'm not sure. But I was hanging around in Phil Tippett's workshop, annoying him and playing with all the puppets and creatures when I should have been, I guess, going home or something. And I was looking at the Nine Numb mask, and Phil Tippett told me that George had pulled him out of the background and wanted him to be Lando's co-pilot in some upcoming scenes, but he had dialogue and there's no movement on the mask. It's just a mask. And they weren't sure how they were going to figure that out, and were they going to have to cover the mouth up with something because it didn't move. And so I said, well, look, if I put my hand inside, I can work the mouth like a puppet and he can talk. And he said, oh, that's a really interesting idea. So he said, do you want to mock that up and sort of make up a little sort of mock up puppet version with one, because there were two masks basically, duplicate. So he said, take one of them and fit it out and make a little sort of upper body and we'll show it to George. So I said, sure. So a week later, we actually did a little film test with me working the hand puppet modified Nine Numb mask, and then the other extra wearing the other one. And he shot us next to each other, directing us to look around and react and speak and all that kind of thing. And I suggested at that time, oh, look, you could put eye blinks and make him blink, and you could wiggle his ears and all that kind of thing. And George loved it all, and they said, great, let's go with that. Sent the mask back to California, back to ILM to be mechanized. And about 2 weeks later or so, we were filming on it. And somehow I'd gotten the job of working him as well, just by being there and I guess helping and making it work somehow. So I suppose in some ways I can take a bit of credit for him not having his face covered up with oxygen masks and all kinds of things, and actually having his face be working and visible, as well as his the sort of quirky little moves and nods and laughs that he had in the Falcon were essentially Muppet sort of techniques, the poses, the cleaner sort of animation poses rather than just everything moving all the time. So that all came from Muppets, and essentially, Nine in the Cockpit is really just a very large Muppet in some ways, just a little bit less cartoony, but nevertheless, that's essentially where he came from. So he's always been a very sort of clean, it's almost anti-creature creature in a way to me, and the opposite of what you'd expect a Star Wars creature to be. And even in the new films, I approached him in that way. I tried to keep everything very, very specific, very posy, very clean, so like he's looking here now and this is what he's thinking, and now he's looking there and now this is what he's thinking, or more like an animation approach, I suppose, which is sort of when a good Muppet is really communicating well visually. It is very much like animation. It's very clean visually. So that was my approach to him, and I think that's why he's different to everyone else. Although all these different things are why he's different to other characters, I think. One is the sculpt, perhaps one is the fact that he was a Muppet, essentially, and then and the approaches to it all, and then the writing, what he got to do in the films, and that kind of stuff. So, and the extended universe where they put him in comics and books and gave him a backstory and all that kind of thing, and the toys as well. So I think all these different things just sort of created this critical mass that created this wonderful little guy that everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people really seem to like. So including me, I love the guy. So.
I was just showing Matt before, as you were talking about him, I held up my lone Nine Numb action figure that I got in the 90s. I think this is the 90s version.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, a lot more detailed. Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so who came up with the language that he is speaking? Is that something the writers came up with? Is that just something George said, just come up with something for him to articulate non-English?
In the original script, they knew he was going to speak alien. It wasn't going to be English, and the script just said Nine Numb chatters, and then Lando had his reactions. So in the script, the pages they gave me, he didn't have any dialogue. It just said Nine Numb chattered, and then Lando has his actual dialogue. So and I remember thinking, I can't just make stupid stuff up on set. It needs to be consistent and it needs to be real, and I need to say something. So knowing that, all the stuff we put down on set is all temporary dialogue anyway. It's always, especially with the creatures, always replaced. I think even Frank had to revoice Yoda for once the edit was done to get everything the same, and matching. So, and they do that a lot with the actors sometimes when needed as well. Plus you get clumps from the set, the wooden sets that aren't supposed to be wooden, and all sorts of weird echoes and stuff. So I knew that whatever I said was going to be replaced anyway. So I just thought, well, what Lando says makes sense. So Nine Numb is obviously saying proper stuff, and to me it's clear he's saying this and he's saying that. So I penciled into my script. This was literally the morning of the shoot. I penciled in my script what I felt he was saying, and George Lucas actually directed those scenes in the cockpit. They were running a bit behind, so Richard Marquand was on stage 5, I think it was, directing the Rancor pit scenes, and George was directing the cockpit stuff. So I just asked George. I just showed him the script and said, "Can I have Nine say these things in English, because it'll make sense, and it'll help, Billy D and everything." And he just looked at it over, and said, "Yeah, sure, that's fine." So there we go. So I just laid down all my dialogue in English, and then it went to Ben Burt, and I had a chat with Ben Burt a few years ago about this, the sound designer. And he said, yeah, I could tell even with the sound off, visually, looking at what you did with Nine Numb, what his intent was and whether he was excited or happy or concerned or whatever. So he said, I knew visually, what I needed to do. But they had a Kenyan intern at Skywalker Ranch, I think. And so Ben pulled him in and got him to do some various sentences and words and laughter, and so he's actually speaking a dialect of Kenyan. Okay. And that's so he was really big in Kenya apparently. And,
what hopes they looked up what he was saying?
Yeah, well, they some of the things he's saying was a bit weird apparently, but Lupita of course was from Kenya, so she knew Nine Numb and was a fan of his and knew exactly what he was saying too, from the new movies. So and they tracked him down like a month or so before the release of The Force Awakens, and found it was Kipsang was the name of the guy, Kipsang Rotish, and they found him and he recorded new stuff for The Force Awakens and got him to do a line for the Rise of Skywalker, and he recorded a bunch of stuff for the Rise of the Resistance ride at Disney, which we did as well. So it's been the same guy the whole time doing the voice for him, and of course me in the new movies. So it's really nice. It's really lovely to have that continuity. I haven't met him yet, but I really, really want to. I hope they can bring him over for something like Celebration, and we can have a little thing together. Meet for the first time on stage or something would be really cool, wouldn't it?
In some ways, that's kind of strange to think that you are one of the same character, and you've never actually gone to meet that gentleman that voices your work.
Yeah, he's a teacher in Kenya basically, so he has a job there, a real life basically, and then they just kind of pull him out once in a while for a few sentences here and there. So, but nice. It will happen.
Yeah, one day this will happen. So you weren't on the set trying to make Billy D crack up at any point with some just off the wall comments. Well, take the parking brake off.
Yeah, no, I mean now I'd be much more inclined to do that, and that would probably be my default. But at that time I was like 17, and this was a big deal. Oh, I'm in the Falcon. Oh, there's Lando. Oh, there's George Lucas. Oh, we have a few hours to, we have a day, day and a half, whatever, to shoot this thing, and the puppet's really heavy, and I can't screw up, and oh my goodness, I'm in this big giant close-up. So the last thing I wanted to do was make it harder for Billy D anyway, of course. He had a lot on his plate to handle as it is. So I don't think we did sort of joke around in between takes, the two of us, and chatted and stuff. when they were resetting cameras and repositioning stuff for different scenes. So we'd do that. But once we were up there, we didn't really rehearse much anyway, and film was rolling. So and film is expensive, so there wasn't really a lot of opportunities during when I had the puppet on, because the puppet was so heavy. I had to save all my energy for the real takes anyway, and Phil Tippett had to lower him in through the cockpit window onto me. I was flat on my back in the where that's in Chewie's old seat, so they had to cut the base of the seat out so I could get low enough, and I had a little monitor so I could see what the cameras were doing, and that was it really. So there wasn't really a lot of time or energy for tomfoolery during the actual takes. But with that said, nowadays there might be a different story.
Yeah. Now everything's still digital. You don't have to worry about the cost of film as much. Just the cost of a hard drive.
The new movies have all been shot on film, of course, pretty much. So,
Well, that was smart. There is a difference, and that had been something going originally working with George, and now dealing with JJ and the ones that work with them to direct and work those movies.
Yeah.
That had been quite a different experience. Two very different directors, but kind of the same vision of trying to tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, certainly with Ryan and JJ, they're very good. They're both very good people persons, So they're I go back to people like Robert Zemeckis on Roger Rabbit. They're just very good all rounders. I mean, they're great with the actors, they're great with the crew, they're great with the special effects guys. They're sort of an everyman kind of director. So they're all very personable, very hands-on, very approachable, which is very important to me. So yes. I really enjoyed. I worked obviously with JJ a lot more than Ryan, but I really enjoyed their energies on set a lot and had a lot of respect. There really aren't many people on the planet that wouldn't crumble after the first hour on a set trying to direct a movie like that. Never mind, the whole film. It takes superhuman powers, let's just say.
I can't. The scope of vision and the amount of details that you have to keep in order.
The responsibility of trying to keep on schedule, trying to do the scripts as well. They were constantly writing on stuff and pivot and when they need to make changes, weather's gone wrong or something breaks or whatever. It's just like insane. So I have so much respect for those guys. They're super smart and it's really, really great to be around those people and watch how they craft a shot, how they build a shot, how they, like watching JJ sort of position actors and trying them in different configurations and spaces. And, oh, no, you come back over here. Oh, no, go back to where you are. That was better. But let's try it. And he'll sort of craft the shot and just keep massaging it until it's like, okay, that's the take. We got it. Moving on, Really interesting.
Yeah, that's something else. You brought it up, and I might as well use it as a natural transition. You brought up Zemeckis and one of my personal favorite movies, Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Could you tell me about your time on that?
Only if you say, please, Mikey. There you go. So essentially, I mean, that was, when did we film that? I think it was 87, 88, something like that when we shot it. Also at Elstree Studios. Strange.
Very popular place.
Dave Barclay was the sort of chief puppeteer. He was brought in by through George Gibbs, who was head of visual effects, I think it was. And he won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects that year. So us as puppeteers were sort of under him. We were part of his department, sort of his secret sauce in a way, I think. So Dave Barclay was brought in as the head puppeteer, and then Dave brought me in as sort of the main hand puppeteer. So apart from doing various rods and pulling strings and various devices, anytime that actual physical hands were being needed for stuff, then that would be my hand. So often, like when there's some weasels, there's one that catches the record in his mouth. That's my hand with the weasel drawn over the top, and there's another weasel that has a bar of soap in his mouth blowing bubbles. That's also my hand puppeteering as though it's a weasel. And then when in the close-up, when Roger's under Bob Hoskins' coat, Eddie Valiant's coat, those are my hands under there wriggling around. And when
you
Roger's
really got
jumping
up close and personal with Bob there.
very much. Oh yeah, you have to. And then when Roger's jumping up and down on the bed, I'm underneath pulling the various footsteps of Roger's feet on the bed. So just all that kind of thing. Yeah, as puppeteers.
Yeah, I mean, that movie in itself, just the amount of different techniques that they had to do to get all that to work. Again, it wasn't a matter of, well, it's never done before, so we can't do it. It hasn't been done before. Let's figure this out, because for me, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It just came out to be something amazingly beautiful, of such a marriage of many different type of mediums, puppetry, animation, live action.
Yeah, it was super hard. I mean, there came a point where we had a 24-hour filming going on, so like when we came to the Acme factory, that was all location in London, and so we'd have a 12-hour day crew and a 12-hour night crew, and we'd have two teams of puppeteers, and we'd just hand off and keep going, But for Bob Zemeckis to be able to keep his head around all the aspects, and Spielberg breathing down his neck saying, "Come on, you need to hurry up," Warner Brothers and all this sort of stuff. So it was a very hard shoot, I think, in many ways. But wow, what an amazing thing! And it was sort of at this transitional time where they weren't quite doing CG yet, but there were some of the toon things were rendered in post-production at ILM, and some of the things were practical from us. So they were just sort of at that turning point, I think. It was that magical time where we were still pretty much doing everything practical. And they'd reconfigured these old VistaVision cameras from Gone with the Wind. And that's what they because they had a double-sized negative, I think they called it Lazy 8. So it was an 8 perforation negative instead of 4, which meant that the image was twice as large for all the processing. So you'd have less grain when they squished everything back together again before computers. They everything, I think, was still going through their optical printer, which was this big, long, you've probably seen pictures of it, big, long device with lots of lenses and goodness knows what. So that was everything was shot on VistaVision essentially, with adapted Gone with the Wind cameras, and filmed on quite often on tracks that were computerized, so they could reproduce the camera movement with and without the actors in it. So they had everything. The whole movie exists without anybody in it, but with all the backgrounds as well.
Yeah, I think in one of the behind the scene footage things that somebody mentioned that there is a whole production film of the movie without any of the animation, and you just have these giant prop puppets. Yeah, or exactly. Bob looking at nothing and reacting in just, he was such a physical actor in what he could do, and to think of, and not to talk poorly about anybody, that the option was Eddie Murphy.
All right, interesting. Yeah.
That Eddie Murphy just recently came out saying that he had turned that role down just because he couldn't wrap his head around how this would have been done.
Yeah. And if you watch, there's footage of like the scenes of Bob Hoskins in Toontown without any animation, just him in front of a green screen doing all this stuff. It's like, it's so groundbreaking as an actor to sort of just act against absolutely nothing. Some of the pantomime that he's got to do,
Opening
and the
doors,
interaction. Yeah.
moving things, interacting with a car that doesn't exist.
Yeah. He was lovely. Very, I mean, yeah, great actor, very clever. But he knew exactly what he was doing, and the thing is, watching Bob Hoskins work, you could see he was actually very smart, even though he often played sort of, not so smart guys sometimes. But in reality, Bob Hoskins was there because he was super clever, super smart, and he was able to do all these things, and was a very fast thinker, very bright, very clever. So, and lovely. He was a lovely guy.
Yeah, I would have been amiss if I did not bring up that movie with you.
Oh, okay.
As I mentioned earlier, and I think I saw you mention on Facebook, what can you talk about, if anything, Muppets now?
Oh yeah, I don't know what I'm just imagining. I probably shouldn't preempt too much because they haven't put out much about it yet, and they probably don't want to, because it's not till the end of July. They don't want to get people whipped up into a frenzy too soon, I would imagine. No. So I will not divulge too much, other than that, and I don't know I haven't seen the finished thing either, but we did a lot of episodes, and they had a lot of guest stars in there, and different segments, and it was just very silly fun. There's a lot of stuff that we did, and it was just nice, just sort of looser old school sort of Muppets having fun being Muppets kind of thing, I guess I only know from my experiences being on set. Like I say, I haven't seen any of the finished stuff, but I think it's a really good step in the next direction of where Muppets can go. Basically, obviously things have been put on hold a bit now with everything, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get there when we can. So it was all the performers were very happy. I mean, it was a good several bounds forward, I think, for Muppets, in my opinion. And I think it'll be fun. I hope people like it.
I know. I'm looking forward to it. I posted on the show's Facebook page about how this show, when they announced the air date, and the reaction was just overjoyed from everybody. I would say at this point that post has been seen maybe more than 8,000 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So
nice.
it's
and everything that I've heard has been basically kind of what you said, Mike. Like, I can't talk. I've seen interviews with both Phil Beretta and Dave Goelz in the last few weeks where they've both kind of said, I can't talk about it, but we had so much fun doing it.
Yeah, and Kirk Thatcher as well. He directed some of that stuff too, of course.
Yeah.
So I know he did some interviews recently too. So, there are other things beyond this that they're planning, and I'm sure stuff that's larger and grander than what this is. But I think this is the perfect thing for right now for Muppets and for fans. There'll be it won't be the final destination, but I think it's a really great step forward before we get into some other stuff later on. So and I'm really pleased. I'm looking forward to it. Good family stuff too.
Oh, good. I'm so looking for anything new with the Muppets. I always look forward to. I mean, I do get sometimes a little leery on some things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With reason, but when those shorts started coming up online, the Bohemian Rhapsody, the Ode to Joy, Popcorn, all those different little vignettes that
that's right.
you guys were doing, basically in their closets or wherever, but it brought back the soul and the heart of what the Muppets should be. We're doing this for the reason because it is fun, and we're not trying to make serious. We're not trying to change the world with a stand or a statement of whatever. We want you to just kind of have fun for this
Yeah.
period of time and get lost. And
we did the a few years ago. We did the Muppets Live at the Hollywood Bowl, and then Muppets Live at the O2 in London. Similar shows, but they were each like a 2-hour show, live Muppet show essentially. And it was exactly that. You had the Muppet Show theme. We were doing classic Muppet songs. We were doing silly sketches. And it was just classic. You had the Dr. Teeth band, and it was just classic fun Muppets. And I mean, I wish that you all could have sat in the audience and seen those shows live. But that sort of points the direction in which I assume that the Muppets are going. I would imagine.
You just reminded me, Mike. Were you involved in the live performance that the Electric Mayhem did a few years ago?
Yeah, so we did the Golden Gate Park.
Oh my God, that was the most amazing thing. I saw the live stream of it, and I thought, this is such next level stuff. I've never seen the characters done this way before. That was so exciting to watch the band.
It was crazy for us.
Move around the stage like that. It was.
Yeah, it's
you
like
guys
I don't know how many.
Fantastic job on that, and I can't congratulate you guys enough.
It was crazy. Well, first of all, how do you work a Muppet for half an hour without dying? So there was that little problem. But
your arm's gonna fall.
Secondly, will a young sort of audience care about seeing these Muppets necessarily? We were warm up for Third Eye Blind, basically. And we so it was a set list, and we obviously rehearsed it and everything, but it was, I think it was the first. I mean, Jim always wanted to do Muppet. He wanted to do a lot of live shows on Broadway and that kind of thing. He was always interested in that, so I know he would have been behind it anyway. But I think when we were doing it, when we were about to do it, I don't think any of us were really sure how well we'd be received, or if anybody would really care that much. But as we started, people started flooding from the other stages. I mean, I don't know what the real number was, but they kicked around something like 65,000 people. That seems like a lot to me. But they all came towards us, and they knew the songs, and we could hear the audience singing along with us. And then when we finished the set, they wanted more. And of course, we weren't allowed to do any more. We hadn't rehearsed anymore, and we had to keep to a schedule. But it was really quite. I think we were all quite moved ourselves, all of us, by how amazing this experience was, being on a rock stage, on the main stage, basically, with all these people. So yeah, I think we got to feel what it was like to be a rock star for a few minutes. It was incredible, and that's what led to doing the Hollywood Bowl shows and the O2 shows. In fact, that was sort of the precursor for that, because it had gone down so well. Then they expanded it into these other live shows, which were absolutely crazy and amazing.
Yeah,
I wish I could have.
Roughly how many puppeteers was it to do that, the Electric Mayhem thing?
Yeah, they had one principal puppeteer for, let's see, Animal took 2, Dr. Teeth took 2, and Lips took 2. I was helping Steve with Lips. And then I think there was, in fact, I think each character had an assistant puppeteer, actually, come to think of it now. Yeah, Floyd and Janice.
Roughly 2 on each?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah,
that's right. Had to backtrack and think about that for a minute, but that's what we ended up doing because of the guitars and stuff. And
Matt, I don't know if you ever saw how they did this, but they had Floyd, Janice, Zoot, and Lips were like full-bodied.
Yeah.
Wow. And then they sort of, the puppeteers were all in black.
Correct.
And it was almost like Boonraku. And so you can actually have, like, Floyd would play the bass and, like, walk across the stage. And it's the most amazing thing. At one point, Janice and Floyd go back to back and are playing back to back and, like, kick their legs in the air. And it's unbelievable.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun.
We'll have to look this up.
Yeah.
I've seen clips of it years ago, and it's just not coming to mind. I mean, the closest, unfortunately, that I've ever come seeing Muppets live was actually seeing John Tartaglia and his troupe, Johnny and the Sprites, live. So it was him, Tim Lagasse, and Leslie.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Oh, great. Wow. What a great team. Yeah. Tim and Leslie. Yeah. Nice.
And my daughter was a big fan of that show, and I'm a big supporter of John.
Yeah. John's great.
So I got to talk to him after the show a bit, and through Matt, we brought up some names, and he, reminisce of Sesame Street days.
Absolutely. And John's doing Gobo now, of course, in the new final segment.
Yes.
So, in the writing and producing and performing. So yeah, how about that? Amazing.
So sadly, I have not gotten to experience the Muppets in person. But it definitely a dream of mine to one day be able to experience the madness of the Muppets, just in all their wonder and awe. Because I'll have to look these things up. I'm sure there's videos out there of the O2 and
there are videos of that in the bowl, and also I think Outside Lands is the first one we were talking about at Golden Gate.
Find
Park,
that
San
and watch
Francisco.
it, Matt, because it's amazing. And I always thought it was odd because they did Muppets Live at the Hollywood Bowl, and I thought, okay, and then they did Muppets Take the O2, and I just thought it was a natural progression. The next thing that they would do live would go to New York and title the show.
That's what we were hoping. Yeah, we were wanting that as well, and then maybe tour a few major cities around the world.
Take it to New York and give it the obvious title, Muppets Take Manhattan.
Manhattan. I mean, there you go.
Well,
Muppets Live in Manhattan, just so you don't have the confusion. But
never say never. And it might have been just a logistical and financial thing because, of course, the puppeteers also had Sesame that they had to do, and goodness knows what else. So it's possible that I think it was talked about, and it was a hope that logically, New York or whatever might be the next obvious place to go, and it was a hope, and who knows, maybe another iteration of that could still happen for sure. But
Who's got Iger's phone number?
Exactly, yeah, his wife, I guess. But I think it was probably just logistical, and it's not a cheap show to put on either, of course. Right. So, and do you spend those energies doing that, or do you put those energies into doing things like Muppets Now and of course, we did the portal ads as well, the Facebook portal ads at pretty much the same time last year, which were really, I don't know if you saw those. Yeah, those were really sweet, actually. Very, very nice bits with, we did Rainbow Connection as well for the Christmas commercial. So always nice, So yeah, I mean, where do you, I guess there's a finite amount of energy and time and money, and where do you put that, I suppose.
But hopefully one day, because no project ever stays, no bad idea goes away at Disney, so hopefully it's something that maybe, like you said, Muppets Now will progress to whatever the next step is,
I think
and
so.
keeping the Muppets or bringing the Muppets more to a forefront, because the new Muppet Baby series has been doing really well for them.
Yes, isn't it? Yeah.
Which it just goes to show you, people love the Muppets when they're done. Let the Muppets be the Muppets.
Yeah, absolutely, and give the public, what they want, I guess, and then some, hopefully.
Yeah.
Certainly one never wants to just pander, because it's otherwise it would be like giving children sweets when. That might be what they want, but they could actually use some broccoli and some greens and stuff. So it's always nice to go beyond what people think they want, for sure, and to experiment and try new stuff. So as long as that can still happen, then there's still growth. You know what I mean? There should always be growth, always forward motion, and that's something I think Jim was always interested in doing. Not necessarily looking back or staying static, but like I mentioned at the beginning of this, new characters, new worlds, new ideas. So by all means, give the audience what they want, but also I think move forward and experiment. Take chances, right? That's what we have to do in life. That's how we find the good stuff, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. You like you said, you don't take the risk. There's no reward. I mean, not everyone's gonna succeed and become this brilliant idea, but
Yeah,
you
fail
can't.
forward, as we say, right?
Yes, yes, indeed. But
Which
speaking
was very
of,
much a Muppet thing in itself, really. They failed forward. So why not the rest of us learn from that a little bit?
because the Muppet Show didn't happen by accident. There was lots of trials that led up to it.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and again, it was like I said, Jim just kept pushing that envelope of, okay, we did this, let's go for this. So okay,
Yeah.
we did that.
They
Now
made
let's
a
go for
couple of
that.
they made 2 pilots, and Kermit wasn't the MC at the beginning, and they couldn't sell the show to any of the networks in the States, so that's why he had to come to the UK, and then eventually made Kermit the MC, and then they sort of found their way. Miss Piggy wasn't Miss Piggy at the beginning. Fozzie was a little weirder at the top there, and then it evolved. So absolutely, it's not an overnight thing at all.
I do miss the Swedish Chef with the Japanese subtitles.
Ah, yes. Well, I'm sure we could do something for you, especially if you like. So.
And I have to thank this man over here, Matt, for bringing me on to that. Because before I even got the DVD, was able to get the DVD set, he told me about what the pilot episode was.
Oh yeah.
That does predate my memories.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
And I was able to see it and just absolutely love the chaos and just like ideas that just how did you think? Why would you even think of doing that? And finding one of the original pitch reels that they did with the Muppet talking, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do, and just going absolutely insane. And it just. And that's what I love about the Muppets. It's just this, me as a mere mortal cannot necessarily always comprehend as creative as sometimes I get. And Matt could attest to some of the crazy things that I've done. But this is a family show, so we won't get into it.
Well, I think I saw something with Frank Oz did a thing recently in honor of the 30th anniversary of Jim's passing. And I think one of the things he said in there was, Jim kind of loved going insane. He could do a character like Rolf and Kermit, who was really sweet, and he enjoyed doing that. But taking a character like Dr. Teeth or Swedish Chef, or just something that he could just really push himself and be the other end of that spectrum was
convincing John
really
or Guy
some,
Smiley.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim loved that. He loved to play.
Relished it.
Yeah, and he loved, even like we mentioned the Tale of the Bunny Picnic earlier. He performed the dog puppet in that, and he would just he loved dogs anyway. It seemed Jim always had a thing about dogs, but when he was working that dog, he just enjoyed being there, being a kid working this dog puppet. He was just in his absolute element. It was such a joy to see, it really was. So that's absolutely true.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was Jim's idea, and it holds so true. It's like, well, how do you end this scene without ruining it? Well, you just blow it up.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you end something? Well, just blow it up.
And end up with explosions and throw puppets in the air, and it's, the end. So, or everybody, It
reminds me of just going back to Walt Disney of how Goofy got his name. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that story of how Walt would say, okay, and just do something goofy. Well, they had Dippy Dog, and I think the animators didn't care for the name. And they'd say, oh, you want Goofy in this? And they would start drawing Dippy Dog. No, I don't want him in this. I want you to do something goofy. So it was the animators were doing a running gag on Walt Disney. Disney always saying, do something goofy. And that's how Goofy actually ended up with his name.
Brilliant.
Mike, with everything you've done, let me ask you a big question. What's been one of your favorite projects that you've worked on so far?
Usually it's the last thing I've worked on because it's freshest and I'm still reeling from the joy of it all. So it's a really hard one to answer. It is a bit like asking to name your favorite child, I suppose. I have lots of different favorites for different reasons in different categories. So not to cop out or anything like that.
No.
I enjoy being a part of these epic space operas. Being a little tiny part of that and being around that is amazing. Is amazing. But also, I enjoy when I can create one of my own characters and just have fun with that as well, and have that be an alter ego of mine. So there's a character I'm going to rebuild at some point, I think soon, that I worked in the late 80s, early 90s. I enjoyed a lot. All that stuff's gone. It was sort of disposable TV back in the day, satellite TV. But I'll rebuild him, I think, and bring him back. And I have some other ideas for new characters. And I expect when I do that, that will be my favorite project of the time. It's usually the thing I'm working on at the time, or the most recent thing I've done, more often than not. It's a strange thing, but I suppose, if I'm being honest, that would be my answer.
No, that's a good answer. It's completely acceptable, and I get that. It's because well, what's your favorite episode you've done? It's the one I'm currently working on is always the one that just got me the most.
Also, I forget stuff too, and that's half the problem. And I remember 15 years later, it's like, oh, I forgot I did that. Yeah, So there's a lot of that.
Are you sure I was involved in that one?
Yeah, exactly. And people are telling me, no, look, here you are, and it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Or I get things mixed up in the wrong order and that kind of thing. It's funny how the memory fools you over time. We're talking about 40 years, so yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I barely remember what I'm gonna have had for breakfast, and so trying to remember all that type of stuff. If you could take one of your characters to a pub, just have a nice night out, not like a date, but just like chatting as an old friend with one of your characters at a pub, who would it be? We ask the hard-hitting questions here at Disney Marvels.
At a pub, who would it be? A character, on my hand, or if he was like a real self-contained character?
I guess it was self-contained. If they, the puppet just popped up to life and was sitting there. Anyone that you've had your hand in or on.
Because that would be some real interesting conversation.
I think that would be. I think I'd have the most fun and be the most irritating and the most annoying if it was my diddly squat alien character, because he is really out there and obnoxious and opinionated and gets things completely wrong a lot of the time and a bit weird. And not everybody gets him, but yeah, he would be fun, all right. I mean, put a few drinks in him, I think it would be okay. So, but he's sort of the opposite end of me in many ways. He's sort of the sillier, louder, ruder version of me. He can say things that I can't say. So sure, the pub, why not? Might end up in a bar fight, but it'll be totally worth it as long as it's captured on video. So there you go.
TMZ, let it out.
Yeah, exactly. Totally worth it.
So, you had a question, Matt, that you wanted to ask him about the project that he's working on.
Oh yeah, well, because weren't you at one point working on a book or a autobiography?
Oh yeah. It's actually it's sort of evolved a lot since it started. Right now, my current hold-up is I've got a whole new bunch of pictures from my past that are in California, and I'm in the UK at the moment. So I sort of have to wait until I can get back there and excavate them all and employ them in the book. So, but otherwise, I just keep adding to it basically, and it's like, the more time I can give it, the better it gets anyway. So I'm not one to half-ass things. So, but it's evolved quite a bit in a good way, though, I think, actually. And also now, originally my original planned release was for much earlier, but that was also before Skywalker would have been released and Rise of the Resistance, right, and stuff. So now I can talk about all that stuff in the book as well and put a kind of a nice bow on Nine Numb and on the Star Wars stuff. It's definitely the end of that sort of chapter. Not to say there wouldn't be anything else in the future, of course, but that I like that. So in a way, any delays that have come up, I think have been really, really positive in big picture things. Anyway, it's fun though, and I keep remembering things that I didn't think were in there. So that I keep the half the book is writing it, and the other half is really editing. So making sure I don't repeat myself, and making sure that I don't repeat myself, and that was a joke, by the way.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Not a very good one. So editing is a big thing. Things have to make sense, and I've got to make sure I have the right cadence and tonal balance in there. Initially, I did a poll, like, what do people want to see? What do they want to read about? Do they want to read about just the career stuff itself, or do they want to read about all the stuff underneath that sort of led me to there? And 2-to-1, the answer was, yeah, they want kind of everything. So that's what I'm writing.
Let it all out. We'll have to.
Well, maybe not all.
Wow.
Maybe just 95% of it. Yeah.
Yeah, keep some bits to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Some stuff's boring. So.
You reminded me. I wanted to bring up Rise of the Resistance. Now that you're part of a now one of the biggest and most innovative Disney attractions out there.
Madness.
Yeah. Have you gotten to ride it yet?
No, I haven't yet. Actually, I was about to head on out when all this stuff came up. So, I'll have to wait.
We'll get back to you on that one, because I had a follow-up question if you had a preference of the blue or the green milk.
Indeed, yes. Well, probably no milk at all. I mean, I'd go for the rum, I think. But
I've heard it is better with the rum. Generous
space rum,
helpings of the
Celestin
rum. Yes.
Space rum would be good. Celestin's from the Spice Mines, spice rum. But so I got to ride I was there on opening day at Disneyland for the park, and I got to ride the Falcon on the first night.
Oh, neat.
Nice. Yeah, I
did that
watch
part. Yeah,
I watched that. It was good. It was good to see Harrison, Billy D, George up there.
It was lovely. Yeah, and I got to say hi to Billy D again and meet some of his family I hadn't met before, and saw Harrison again and shook his hand, and he mumbled at me. It was nice. So
as Harrison does.
As Harrison does. So it was good, but of course the Rise of the Resistance hadn't opened yet, so I didn't get to do that. But soon, I'm sure. I don't know if it'll be this year or next, but I'll get on there a bunch of times, and it'll be quite a weird, surreal experience, I think. Also, I mean, it's a Disney ride. I mean, for goodness sake, how cool is that?
Yeah, that's James Gunn. So one of the things he's always wanted to do was a Disney attraction, and whenever they finally offered him the one in Disneyland, and now one in Epcot, he's just like a little child again, to have this dream offered to him.
Basically, absolutely. I totally get that. It's crazy. I mean, what a wonderful, wonderful thing. Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'll probably cry. I always cry,
There's no shame in that, especially in Disney World. It's tears of joy.
It will be, yeah. No, it will be. I'll be a bit. I think I'll be overwhelmed. So.
And you also now have a new website that you have up and working or working on.
Basically.
I joined your mailing list.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yes. Just sort of. I sort of abandoned websites for a decade or so, but then I realized I actually need just a little hub to send everybody to that can then splinter off. So it's just the beginnings of stuff. Right now, there's a very simple front page that's got either you can just sign up for a newsletter thing, or B, I think there's a button that takes you off to my Puppetry Academy, and then the third thing is. I'll see if I'm to follow what I'm saying. It would be to take you off to an autograph sales page as well. So and then I'll add other stuff that might sort of take people to social media or to a bunch of video playlists of things. I'll sort of expand on that as we move forward, I think. But that's sort of the idea behind it.
It's beautifully laid out, and I'm looking forward to as it evolves and grows.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, trying to keep it simple and not yeah, it's so easy to complicate things, and because I do everything myself, I have to sort of step back and think, oh, hang on, is this actually working? Is this what people want? So I always things are always liquid, aren't they? Right, fluid, and just got to reassess and so yeah, it's good though. I do everything myself.
Well, it looks great. It looks great so far. So cheers to that. Finally, thank you again for that little video tribute that you did for Jim that post on Facebook.
Yeah. Good.
Hearing your thoughts and then hearing Jim's voice after all this time.
Isn't that crazy?
I remember exactly where I was when I found out that he had passed away.
Yeah.
All these years ago, and it's like you said, to hear the voice and just him jumping from character to character like that was brilliant. So thank you for sharing that with everyone.
Yeah, that's the first time I'd ever put that up there. But I also have one of Frank Oz and one of Jerry Nelson and Steve Whitmire and Louise Gold, and I think the Richard Hunt one I'd put up a few years ago.
Yeah, I've heard your Richard Hunt one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That was the only other one I'd put up so far. So I have a few others. I guess I'll trickle them out at some point due to popular demand.
Hey, well, that was some forward thinking on your part to be able to not just to do an audio autograph as you coined the phrase, versus just a pen to paper or something.
Yeah.
Just really capturing that moment in time.
Definitely. Yeah, I was 15, so yeah. Crazy. Well, I guess at that age you just think, well, whatever, I'm just going to do it. There's no fear, right? When you're 15.
Yeah. No, so thank you. Is there anything else you guys want to share? You have any more questions, Matt?
I got nothing.
Well, that's just what can I say? I think so if anyone is wondering, Qzopia.com, I think it is www.qzopia.com should take you there, and if it doesn't, then add a / and a Mike Quinn afterwards, and then that will definitely take you to the front page. So we'll see. But anyway, that's where you can find that stuff, and otherwise, I'm on the social medias and all that. And otherwise, let's see, what can I finish up with? I mean, we're all waiting to see when we can go back to performing again. Because Lucasfilm wants to get back into production with Star Warsy type things. Mm-hmm. So when we're allowed, that will happen. Same with Muppets, and the same with we'll see if I don't know yet what's happening with the season 3 of Kidding. We theoretically could have been beginning that next month had we been going into a third season with the Jim Carrey Showtime series. Yeah. So those were wonderful to do. So we'll see what and when we can get back into, when it's safe to get back into production again.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to play it a bit on the safer side here myself, just until I really know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, you have your Nine Numb mask that you could wear.
That's right, and that definitely scares everyone away for sure. So never mind you 6 feet 2 meters or whatever. It's like 6 miles, So it's great. I'm gonna hide away. I'm going to keep busy and stay creative and keep pushing myself. And we need to keep looking out for each other, and use this time well if you can. And if anyone is struggling, then don't be afraid to reach out to friends and let them know, because not everyone is doing okay in these weird times right now, financially especially. So, just look out for each other and don't be afraid to speak to people if you need.
Indeed.
That's all I can say.
Indeed. And you mentioned your social medias. What are the ways they could find you on there?
So let's see. I have an Instagram account, which is just Secrets of Puppetry. which is named after my academy. So they can find me there, Secrets of Puppetry. And then otherwise, Mike Quinn Official on Facebook would be the one that, the public one that people should go to, Mike Quinn Official, Facebook. And then I think from there, I also have Mike Quinn Autographs, but yeah, that's probably there. I believe that I do have a Twitter account that I don't really pay attention to, Quinn's Own Studios, or Quinn's Own Studio, I think it is. But main thing is, check out the website and if they're on Facebook, Mike Quinn Official, sign up and follow on that, I think. And then if they fancy it, the Instagram. I haven't done TikTok yet, but
yeah, I haven't ventured there myself.
Still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I have enough trouble with Instagram myself personally, but
yeah,
that's
all good.
Yeah. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. That's been fun. I appreciate it too.
It was a great joy talking to you, sir.
Good. It's good to hear all your opinions and perspectives and thoughts and questions. It's nice that people care about this stuff. That's sort of what I get from it. It's really good, and it's important.
I mean, like I said earlier, your book of work is just phenomenal. Yeah, the amount of things in such inspiring films that not just not it's not usually just another film. These films have kind of stood the test of time and resonated with people in one way or the other, between Muppet Caper or the Star Wars, or like I said, Roger Rabbit for myself.
Yeah, Little Shop of Horrors, some people are into.
Horrors, Dark Crystal.
I don't feel I've done my biggest thing yet, which is funny, isn't it? I actually think I haven't quite got there yet. There's like this other big thing that I can really say, okay, that was me. I can die happy now. So I can't die yet because I haven't done my biggest thing. So.
Well, we never wish that upon you, though.
No.
So yeah, and thank you for taking the time out, especially with the technical guffaw of
Oh, that yes.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
It is, and there's always a way around it, and we figured that out. So thank you anyway so much. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you all again at some point in the not too distant future, and in person, of course.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
We look forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you again to Mike Quinn and for Matt Leonard for joining in on this. It's great talking to both. It's always a pleasure to talk to Matt and have Matt on the show. And Mike Quinn was fantastic. What a book of work that this gentleman has given us for us to enjoy. The movies and the TV shows that he's been a part of. He could have gone on for hours, and maybe we'll have him back someday. What are some of your? Let's stick with the Muppets. I mean, I was kind of more intending for Star Wars, but let's stick with the Muppets. What's one of your more favorite Muppet moments that you could think of that has brought a smile, joy, or has an impact to your life? Let us know in the comments, or shout it out. Join the conversation on Facebook, facebook.com/Disney Marvels Podcast. Join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Disney Marvels Podcast. Or even find us on Twitter @Disney Marvels. You can also email the show your answers or suggestions to disneymarvels@gmail.com. You can leave a voice message through the Anchor app or website. Links to all these are in the show notes. I want to thank you for your time. I know how precious time is. Some of us are stuck at home and we have unlimited time, sitting around not doing much, and others are stuck at home and have less time than we seem to normally do, with family members and work or whatnot, always occupying ourselves. So the fact that you took some of that time that you have or don't have and spent it with me, it really means a lot. I really appreciate it. I can't express how much the fact that we spend time together, and we do, even though we may not have met, we are definitely spending time together, how much that means to me. It really means a lot to me personally, and I really appreciate it. If I could just ask you to do one last thing, tell people about the show. Let people know. You could either tell them in person, you could share the shows out on social media, or go onto iTunes and leave a rating. We've been doing great with the 5-star ratings so far, 5-star ratings across the board. Keep them coming. Keep them coming, because this actually helps people find the show that way too. So if you don't want to tell people, you just go online, quick rating on there, and let people know. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted and when they come out. But also consider becoming a premium subscriber to the show. You can do this over at anchor.fm/DisneyMarvels/support, or you can do this through our Patreon page. Links to both are in the show notes. Help keep the lights on, get new equipment, keep things going. Things aren't always free, unfortunately. It helps to support the show, and we really appreciate it. And over on Patreon, you got some fun stuff too if you become a subscriber that way. Remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever you're facing out there, no matter how dark, how difficult, how heavy a situation may seem at this moment, don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Look deep within yourself. You will find a strength. You will find a light. Grab hold of that light. Embrace it. For you too are amazing. You are worth it. And you are your own hero. Be your own hero. And you can accomplish great things. You can accomplish wonderful things. You are beautiful. Believe in yourself. I believe in you. Never give up. Never give in. Now I want to end this show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. Of all our inventions for mass communications, pictures still speak the most universal and understood language. That's from Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everybody, and I'll see you next time.